We are ready to go. And dear colleagues and dear participants to this webinar, we're happy today to greet you on this Wednesday morning in Moscow and afternoon in Singapore. Today we gathered together to discuss a very urgent topic, managing pandemics through innovation and technology. The global pandemic has brought about collective efforts among nations to overcome challenges faced in the healthcare, social and economic sectors by developing new solutions and technologies. And in the fight against COVID-19, there have been many innovations introduced by organizations, SMEs and startups around the world, and especially in the healthcare space. Today, we will share with you challenges and opportunities present from three distinct perspectives: administrator, corporate, and consumer, and also learn about transformation of the biomedical industry, rising trends, and how your business can address these global emerging needs. This webinar is brought to you by Enterprise Singapore, Moscow International Medical Cluster, and Sistema Asia, along with their partners. My name is Daria Lipatova, and I'm Head of Strategic Partnerships at Nusa Sintara, a sustainable resource development company, and I will be hosting this webinar for the next hour. So our event has two major parts: the 5-minute presentations from our experts and general Q&A session. Please feel free to send the questions to my Telegram account at d_Lipatova or to the chat below in Zoom. Please mention your name and whom you are addressing the question to. We're happy to have such prominent speakers today, and let me introduce them. Yogi, Regional Group Director, Russia and CIS countries at Enterprise Singapore. Faina Filina, Director of Marketing and PR, Moscow International Medical Cluster. Dr. Yaslav Ashikhmin, MD, PhD and cardiologist, CEO advisor at Moscow International Medical Cluster. Dr. Kirill Masliev, MD, PhD therapist and medical director of Day One Foundation. Dr. Kirill Kayem, Senior Vice President for Innovations Development at Skolkovo Foundation. Vladimir Diakov, Head of Business Development Programs at Moscow Innovation Cluster Fund. Sofia Yartseva, Project Lead, Office of Digital Transformation at Metsi Group. And Sergei Sidorov, Chairman of Metscan Group. For the introductory remarks, let me pass the word to the representatives of main organizers of this event, Enterprise Singapore and Moscow International Medical Cluster. Yogi, please.
Thank you, Daria. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon, and if you're in Moscow, добрый утро. Thank you for being a part of this session between Russia and Singapore medical practitioners and technopreneurs. My name is Yogi. I come from an organization called Enterprise Singapore. Our main role is to support Singaporean companies in building their capability, helping them innovate, and helping them internationalize. We also play a role in developing Singapore as a startup hub. These are unprecedented times in more ways than one. The scale of the pandemic to lives and its disruption to businesses have not been seen in recent decades. Perhaps what is also unprecedented is the role that innovation and technology is playing in managing pandemics, from clinical measures like test kits to advancements in supply chains, which facilitate the continuity of trade, and tools to facilitate safe distancing. As restrictions ease, innovation through technology will become more important in ensuring our loved ones and livelihoods are insulated from future risks. In this session, we have put together an excellent group of speakers who will share both public and private sector experiences. We also have a good group of participants who have been involved in managing the COVID-19 situation. Together, we hope to tease out key issues that need to be resolved through technology. Perhaps some of these solutions already reside with us, and I hope we can develop new collaborations that seek to address this pandemic and other solutions you seek. In conclusion, I'd like to thank our partners, the Moscow Innovation Medical Cluster, Sistema Asia, our speakers, and you, the participants. Here's hoping you all have a very fruitful webinar and wishing you the very best of health. Thank you.
Thank you, Yogi. Faina.
Dear colleagues, thank you for your participation in our event. I am Faina Filina. I am the head of external communications of the International Medical Cluster. And I'm very happy to see you today. For us, for the International Medical Cluster, and for me personally, it's a great honor to become a partner and the co-organizer of such an important event as our is our roundtable managing pandemics through innovation and technology. It's very important for us to have such partners as Enterprise Singapore and Sistema Asia. The main mission of the International Medical Cluster is to transfer advanced medical technologies, exchange experience between doctors and scientists from different countries of the world. On our territory, the world's leading clinics, R&D laboratories, medical universities, and technology parks are being built and operated. And through our activities, we want to improve the quality of medicine in our country, in Moscow and in Russia. You know, the pandemic has shown once again how important it is to the country for medicine to be at a level to work smoothly and effectively and to have all necessary technologies to cope with it. I'm sure that by utilizing our international platform with such a worthy team of expert speakers, we will be able to discuss innovations, medical technologies that will be forefront in this new period of post-pandemic normality. After all, this is one of the main issues today, how we will live and do business after the pandemic, how the healthcare sector will be transformed globally, and what technologies will come to the fore to prepare the population for a second wave today and pandemics in the future. I'm sure this will be a very interesting discussion, and I wish all of us a successful event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Faina. And for the first expert presentation, let me invite Dr. Ashikmin. Yaroslav, would you open the session with sharing your view of the challenges posed by COVID-19 and new realities we have just encountered?
Thank you very much. So, we medics were waiting for this epidemic. It was absolutely unavoidable due to the nature of the world in which we live. And now we have around 500,000 deaths due to the current viral infection. That's around 0.006% of overall population. That's 7,000 in Russia and 26 cases in Singapore. Is it a lot or little? The epidemic found us unprepared. We were not so good in virology, and now we cannot explain such dramatic difference in sensitivity to the virus and also in epidemiology, because we cannot predict whether there is seasonality or whether we will have a second wave of epidemics, and virus spread models are absolutely imperfect. I would say that humanity, inspired by certain success, was arrogant, overestimating itself, and got a click on the nose. I don't want to say wild things about the importance of preparing healthcare system and developing drugs against corona. I would like to talk about the epidemic, how that should reform the brains of decision makers, about correct and right resource allocation. The greater gap in the exposure for the many disease, risk factors and death per se, is make the more difficult people to get the importance of preventive measures that we see in the health, in the heart disease, for example. Now we see that a gap is narrowing. And that is not like in dental pain, that you have a pain and go to the dentist really and prevent the infections. But the gap is narrowing. That's the very important moment, that the medicalization of society that we see should work. That's the time to society to catch the initiative from pharmaceutical companies in determining what disease is and how we want to treat. Now the real strategy is to make medicine that sell well. People call us that not interested in someone else's pain. We talk a lot about the equality of human lives, but usually that's only just slogans that remain on the paper. Nobody wanted to deal with infections that we will get. In some years, more people died from malaria, more people than heart disease, until Gates decided to do charity. Everyone didn't care about the death of malaria. We made cancer drugs for cancer treatment for hundreds of thousands of dollars, saving the few months of life. We lived in information bubbles that we got this word. When solving local and important tasks of finding medicine for COVID, we must think strategically. First of all, we have to start a difficult conversation about the cost of human life in different parts of the world or different ages. I suggest that's equal, but don't know about you. About how much we were willing to pay for saving lives. Because the house in economics now is born of the taboo of speaking about these topics. The epidemic brings together decision makers in different areas. That's very important. We also need to speak with society. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just need, point A, to start talking about the connection between human lives and the economy. Point B, to use well-developed HTA tools, health technological assessment. Once again, this should be done by us, society, not governments, agencies, politics, and pharmaceutical companies. People will forget about the epidemic in a couple of months. We must to seize, to catch the moment in order to start the conversation about the equitable right healthcare, about where we should move in medicine. That is what I want to tell you. That is what you should remember now when the epidemic in development countries is on the decline. We all need to get vaccinated against narrow-mindedness, non-participational intellectual myopia, and short-sightedness. We must begin the movement towards healthcare that is truly in the interest of the people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yaroslav. And well, indeed, the dialogue between society and government is continuing, and that's actually why we are here today. And also, indeed, the past 6 months have drastically changed the landscape of interhuman relationships as well as biomedicine. And our next speaker has been also personally involved in fighting pandemics in Russia. Being practicing doctor himself, Dr. Masliev serves as medical director of the Day One Foundation, providing personal protective equipment to the Russian hospitals fighting COVID-19. And I would like to invite Dr. Masliev to continue our session and share views on the lessons learned from the pandemics and what we should know about the trends for the future. Dr. Masliev will continue in Russian with consecutive translation provided by my colleague at Enterprise Singapore, Russia, Maxim Yefremov.
Thank you, Daria. I will start in English, and if I will have some problems, I will kindly ask to help me with translation. First of all, of course, it's a great honor for me to be a part of this amazing webinar, and I would like to say thank you, Daria, and all your team, all Skolkovo team, for this opportunity to take part in this webinar, and all of guests of this webinar, and all of participation. So, yes, Daria, you are right. I'm involved in coronavirus fighting maybe 24 hours a day, more than 3 months. First of all, because I'm a doctor. Second one, because I'm a head of medical department of our charity foundation, Day One, and we have delivered not only to Russia, we have delivered some medical equipment, some medicine to Italy, to Spain, and there was about 25 planes and about 60 tons of some medical equipment and some medicine. And we do a job till these days. And finally, I'm with coronavirus 24 hours a day because I was ill, coronavirus. I get the virus from the patient. So you're really right that I'm like in love with coronavirus. So we have lots of problems, and we have lots of questions that we didn't have answers till that time. First of all, I would like to say about World Health Organization. For me, it was a big surprise of the situation with the World Health Organization. I think that they did their job terribly. Because I think they should be the first one who make some decisions about coronavirus. They should make some directions, not only for doctors, for healthcare system. They should give some advice for the people, and they say different words all time. For example, first of all, they say you didn't have to wear masks. Then three months later, they say you should wear a mask, and that's all. They didn't say everything about chloroquine. They didn't say everything about some diagnostic tests and so on, so on. So I think that the work of World Health Organization should be changed, or there should be a new organization that cooperates with the governments, that cooperates with healthcare systems, and cooperates with people. The second situation that caused a lot of discussion, it's of course tests, because nobody knows what tests can 100%, 90% say about coronavirus. Do you have coronavirus, or don't you have coronavirus? How many tests should we do? Should you use PCR tests, or should you use express tests, and so on? There are a lot of light positive, light negative tests, and so on. So there are a lot of questions that we should answer, I think, sometimes later. But the main thing that I would like to speak about of course, about the World Health Organization, and that we should really change the cooperation with this system.
Yes, thank you, Kirill. And I would like to also invite our audience to follow Dr. Masliyev's Instagram at Dr. Masliyev, and listen to the weekly broadcasting programs at 11 p.m. Moscow time each Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Kirill. And so lately, we have been really informed about support measures provided from the government for traditional and technological businesses to survive after lockdown season. And the cradle of Russian innovations, I have been honored to be a part of it for almost the last decade. This year celebrates its 10th anniversary. Of course, I'm speaking about the Skolkovo Foundation. Having almost 2,500 startups in its ecosystem, Skolkovo Foundation have launched a special initiative to support technologies helping to fight COVID-19. And with these words, I'm happy to invite Dr. Kirill Kayem, Senior Vice President for Innovations Development of the Skolkovo Foundation, to share views on transformation of the biomedical industry and innovations that people and businesses now need. Please, Kirill.
Thank you very much, Daria. Definitely, I mean, I have kind of optimistic view what's going on right now with the innovation as a response to coronavirus, because what we see in worldwide landscape, and as well what we see in the Skolkovo Foundation per se, we see that a lot of companies, big and small, targeting the own products they developed, or changing the product they developed in direction to help the human being with the situation of pandemic. We announced the special measures, special support measures for the companies, like a fast track evaluating the coronavirus, some financial support for those companies, and it's working pretty well, I would say. From the moment when decided to make a special track, we have more than 150 companies applied for the support for specific products they developed against the pandemic. And also I would say that even few of those products are already coming to the market, like one of the drugs, small molecule, against a specific treatment for coronavirus was developed one of the Skolkovo startup. It was registered in Russian Federation, or diagnostic tools developed by different startups of Skolkovo Foundation are registered for official medical use in Russian Federation. I would say that regulatory, the Ministry of Healthcare in Russian Federation also reacted fast and reacted in the right way. It was the specific declaration, specific rule when the new development can be registered and in a fast track, and it's available and can be used till 31st of December 2020. And it has to be registered again after December 2020 with the full scope of clinical trials. But in the sake of provide the fast help to the present situation for the product which really works, they have the shortened track of clinical trials right now. That's why that allows us as the country, and that allows new developed product be fast on the market. Yes, risks are higher, but as soon as everybody under the risk with this pandemic situation, I think it's a very smart step. But talking about the tech development, I would say we split all the tech innovations in a few different blocks. And the first block, which is very important, that's diagnostics. We see plenty of fast diagnostics tools right now on the market, mostly antibody tests, but the quality of this antibody test, which was mentioned by Kirill as well, is very low quality, and nobody understands what is the preciseness of the test, what is this synthesis of the test. And we have a few products right now, and we support few products right now, which has much higher specificity and much higher sensitiveness of those tests. That's not only diagnostic tools, as well as we know the indication of the virus in the body is the most precise diagnostic for the moment, because still we don't have the guideline for WHO about the immune response of the body. So nobody knows when antibody appears in the blood and how long would it work. I mean, immunoglobulin G, nobody confirmed that it works long enough to protect the person against the second case of the disease. And there are some data in China, in Korea, that it was indicated as some second case of the disease for the people who already had coronavirus diagnosis before. But concerning those tests which are PCR tests, it's also the big question, because for the moment the regular technology of PCR test is a rather long-term test that takes 2-3 days to provide the result to the patient. And we have few development here in Skolkovo with Skolkovo startups, which make the specific real-time, or different type of real-time PCR, when the result is available in 2-3 hours after the test. And one of those tests is already registered as well in Russian Federation, and it's available for the clinical labs, and also it's available like a portable set with the device which can provide real-time PCR reaction like in a small suitcase. And that allows actually to provide with this suitcase and the set of reagents small clinics or regions with where only paramedic is available and doctor is not available for the fast diagnostics. I know that our startup, which actually arranged part of the production of the Skolkovo territory, sell these tests not only in Russian Federation, but sell those tests as well in some countries abroad, like Latin America. They have some sales, and definitely in CIS countries they provide some products. Actually, they are overloaded. It's definitely high demand for this type of tests. But behind the diagnostics of the coronavirus itself and COVID-19 itself, it's very important to find the patients who has some complications after the disease, because the coronavirus is not dangerous by itself. And you see it's a lot of people who actually has coronavirus without any symptoms at all. It's also one of the tough point about the coronavirus. And complication of the coronavirus is very important. And the main differential diagnosis is CT. And the problem is we have enough CT scanners, but the picture of viral pneumonia is kind of different with the regular pneumonia. And that's why some startups which are working with AI usage for the image recognition in radiology are very fast and very effectively move the product they developed initially for more for oncology, I would say, to the way that AI can be used for the diagnostics of viral pneumonia with a specific picture of COVID. And actually that helps very much, because we have enough CT scanners, as I said, but we don't have enough doctors for the high flow of patients to recognize this disease. And this solution also works in some clinics, but it was registered in Russian Federation and can be used in the practical medicine. The second block of the technology, which is very important, it's definitely the treatment. And as I already mentioned, one of small molecule was already registered in the Russian Federation. It's one track, small molecules. The second track is monoclonal antibodies, which can be actually repositioned against of coronavirus and shows its effectiveness against of coronavirus. As soon as we are talking about pandemic situation, the third big part of the development is antiseptics and barrier function. Everybody right now needs antiseptics, which is cheap, can be produced in the big volumes, can be distributed easily, because the distribution of the big volumes of antiseptics, logistics itself, it's becoming expensive in those volumes. And we have few developments, and that's very also highly demanded by the city governments, by the big corporations, this type of the innovations. And as well about the barrier protection of the patients, of the population, we have a few interesting projects, like much more effective medical masks, filtering small particles. Even the person is coughing, for example, which is not obvious for the regular medical mask. Or we have right now like a barrier gates for the fast disinfection of the person who is coming into the building, and can be mostly disinfected in 20 seconds, 15 seconds, which is again very important in our new reality. And as well for the social distancing, for the safe of the health of the patients. The situation with the pandemic is a huge boost for the telemedicine. It was growing slowly, but it's a huge kick for the development of the product, increasing the quality of the product. And as well, it's a big kick, I would say, for the regulators, for the Ministry of Healthcare, which allows right now much flexible usage of the telemedicine consultations, diagnosis, than it used to be before. And I think even we stop the coronavirus, those change would be, and this trend would be very successful. Also, I would mention, which is not only medical usage, but the VR simulation and VR, AR practices and the medicine is very important, because we actually facing the situation, and maybe Kirill will confirm it, when we have a plenty of medical staff which never had any deals with the pandemic situation. Actually, they had some courses of epidemiology many years ago in the university, And right now they are facing the situation when they are obliged to work in the so-called red zones with the infected patients, risking their health and the health of the next people they meet. And it's very difficult to train them exactly in the red zones, but VR and AR products allow us to train those medical staff without even entering the red zone. And when they're actually facing the real danger, they're already prepared. And also we have some products and some tech required not by the medical needs itself, but more about social distancing, distant work, distant study. So all IT companies developing the product in this segment are booming. And as soon as we are working and entertaining ourselves and studying distantly, the cybersecurity became much more important issue, and the companies in the cybersecurity area is highly demanding. So it's like a short review of the main tech areas which are demanding right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirill. And I have been informed by the organizers that you shall leave now. But before that, we have just encountered a question that I would like to address to you. Taken that we have just launched the soft landing program for international companies. So the question comes from Sergei Arutyunyan. What could be done from Russian side to increase cooperation between Russian and Singapore med companies? What Singapore companies need for further development?
Okay, I mean, Skolkovo is the open system, and definitely all our startups are giving the information freely and openly on Skolkovo website. So you can just enter the website, filter the specific technology you need, not only medical technologies, find the contact of the startup, contact the startup, and check if the technologies can be used in Singapore. The second possibility, we have an agreement with Sistema, and some Skolkovo startups are already on the spot, just putting the feet on Singapore land and trying to bring their product, their development in Singapore and Southwest Asia, because it's already demanded. We know some commercial successes of Skolkovo companies in Singapore already. And the third option, if some Singapore company would like to be in Skolkovo or would like to check the Russian tech market, Skolkovo is the best gate to do this. We have also special program, so-called landing program for international companies in Skolkovo. It's like starting with a 2-week session explaining how to work in Russia, how to find the services you need to organize the company, how to find the partners, what support Skolkovo can provide for this type of the companies. And later on, we're providing some working space in our co-working. We're providing some contacts of the partners for registration of the companies. We are bringing the bridges with the scientific and business community, because we are more oriented on the tech development, so scientific community is needed. And you are warmly welcome to participate in those programs.
Thank you, Kirill. And
thank you.
Continuing our presentation session on the leading Russian entrepreneurship ecosystems, this is a special pleasure to introduce Vladimir Dyakov, Head of Business Development Programs at Moscow Innovation Cluster Fund. The cluster has not only been deeply integrated in the policies to fight pandemics, but also launched a series of business development programs for tech businesses. These include a new Moscow MedTech Accelerator. Vladimir, today, technological companies from Russia and Singapore are also watching this webinar. And could you please share a brief introduction to the cluster and MedTech Accelerator?
Okay, thank you for the introduction. Let's say Moscow Innovation Cluster was really involved in all this pandemic situation. For example, let's say we are the bad and most hated guys who provided management of digital pass system in Moscow. Sorry, and we are as well providers of the government support to small and middle-sized enterprise from the Moscow government. So as Ernst Young said, the Moscow was the only city in the world, the only capital in the world which provide the special program for supporting business in the time of pandemic. Speaking about our development programs, yes, we have a Moscow Accelerator. It's a joint program together with Agency of Innovation of Moscow, and now we have the second track of the Moscow Accelerator, biomedical. Well, it was let's say we were thinking about this track maybe from December, and we were negotiating with our partners, and well, let's say our partners in this track are Invitra and Himrar. Invitra is a leading company in the field of testing for coronavirus, and Himrar is the only Russian company producing the only approved drug against COVID-19. As I understood, it was made together with medical cluster of Skolkovo, by the way. Well, if I can share a screen for the moment, I can show you the one slide about Moscow Accelerator.
Yes, please do so from your own computer.
Yeah. Well, this about our first track, digital services made by Yandex. And by the way, all 20 projects participated in the program. All of them were very useful in pandemic situation, because mostly digital services were in a very high demand for the last 3 months. And the current track, biomedical, our partners are Himrar and Invitra. We have about 400 projects applied, which was, well, let's say unexpected, because I never thought that we could find so much good projects in this field, and we have quite, let's say, short focus of the accelerator. So mostly, I would say it's scouting of our accelerator. We really managed to find a lot of projects which could be used by Himrar and Invitra. And the main task of the accelerator is not to provide some educational program or, let's say, development program for our participants. We are ready to provide real pilots with our partners. And next week we will announce 30 projects that will participate in the program, and we'll try to test them in, let's say, working conditions until September, and we have, let's say, expectations that about 10-15 projects would be approved by our partners for the commercial use, for the industrial use. So it's a real problem to accelerate projects in this field, because as Kirill Kayem said, well, especially for pharma, it's very hard to find solutions which are ready to show something. Usually the innovation process in pharma is inside pharma companies. But we have a very good scouting team, and we have very good relations with science institutes and small teams in clinics all over Russia. And you can see that some solutions of the projects well, could be very, very, very interesting. For example, if we are talking about in vitro, some test tubes modifications, in real startup world, usually this type of project is not in high demand because the cost of one tube is very small, and it's very hard to find investor for this kind of project. But in our situation, we can, it was a demand from the side of in vitro, and we managed to find, I think, 4 or 5 projects which could be tested by in vitro and probably industrially applied. So, thank you.
Thank you for this insight. Although Moscow Innovation Cluster is a relatively new development institution, these initiatives, of course, are very prominent for our businesses. And I hope that as a follow-up to this session, we will be able to distribute the general presentations with the details of MedTech Accelerator Program.
Mm-hmm.
And as we are approaching to this last part of our webinar today, we are moving to the final part of presentations provided by the Russian private healthcare sector. And our next speaker represents MEDSI Group, which is the leader in Russian private healthcare and have been deeply involved in fighting pandemics throughout the country. Now MEDSI is helping businesses to keep their employees healthy by including providing special COVID testing systems. I'm inviting now Sofia Yartseva, project lead at Office of Digital Transformation at MEDSI Group, to share current challenges and demands faced by healthcare institutions from a private healthcare perspective.
Thank you, Daria, and hello, everyone. I'm going to demonstrate my screen now because I have prepared a quick presentation for this venue. Can you see my screen or not?
Not yet.
Yes, just a second. This is probably an access issue. Can you see it now?
Still pending.
Oh, so I will start by saying that MEDSI Group is the leading medical organization in Russia, leading in private sector. And most importantly, we were the first private medical organization that provided COVID-19 patients with the full scale of medical services. We transformed one of our facilities and dedicated it exclusively for the COVID-19 patients. It is located in the suburbs of Moscow, and we transferred all the medical personnel there and provided them with housing and all the services we could to ensure that they don't contact with their families and don't transfer the disease further. I'm not sure why I still can't demonstrate. Oh, this should be it, right?
That's right.
Oh, great. So, so as you can see here, we are one of the largest chains of healthcare facilities in Russia. We are the leader of voluntary medical insurance sector, and quite coincidentally, this is one of our main streams of revenue. We have over 4,500 medical doctors and nurses, and overall about 7,300 employees, which is quite a big stuff, you see. There's a number of challenges that medical organizations have to face in Russia, and I think most probably all over the world. We are facing major shifts in both market structure, regulatory systems, and culture. But most importantly, the patient behavior has changed in the past couple of years, because other industries such as cosmetics and traveling industries and recreation have increased the quality of services. And now the patients are expecting the same from the medical suppliers. They expect to access the services remotely, to get rid of routine operations, and overall to have a smoother experience, like in telecom, for example. So this is why we approach these challenges by the digitalization of medicine processes, both internal and external. And we are working in close juncture with our government to ensure that the amendments of laws regulating telemedicine will be brought into practice. We have our own telemedicine platform, it's called SmartMed, and we are now entering the sandbox of Russian Ministry of Economics, and we will be testing the amendments the first in Russia. Here at METSI, we believe that digitalization is the main driver for the development of medical services, and we strongly believe that from traditional services, we have to go through digitalization to personalization and ultimately to health ecosystem that will provide not only treatment and rehabilitation after the treatment, but also a whole bunch of services that will promote healthy lifestyles and disease preventions. Here on the chart, you can see the METSI's position on these different aspects of the future medical services. So we have now the comprehensive course of treatment, and we want to transfer from here to the whole health management system, include genetic information into our account when we personalize the offer to the patient, and provide remote consultations and diagnostics to our patients to increase the treatment quality and overall experience. So for that, we have established the digital ecosystem. We started building the digital ecosystem of services that are focused around the three main branches. So-called, I am at the doctor's office. I have left the doctor's office and I want to stay healthy. And I am not currently in need of doctor's services, but I want to stay healthy and I want to monitor my health so I can prevent any negative changes. The digital platform will allow us to both digitize and optimize the client path, to expand the product offer ultimately with the services for healthy people, and to personalize the offers we provide based on the analysis of patient data from different sources, both from METSI and from our partners of Sistema. So ultimately, this digital platform will integrate different partners, including suppliers of individual services, healthcare providers, and other patients and clients. METSI will supervise and manage the platform and be an arbiter between the members of the platform. So for that, we have established the METSI Labs, which is an accelerator. It is a platform, a small company that will make the partnering easier for METSI, which is a big company, obviously. We have all kinds of options for collaborations with startups, First of all, hackathons and accelerators, most importantly, providing pilot projects at Medsi clinics, establishing partnerships, and creating joint ventures for collaborative development of novel services and products. We can also provide investments in capital and non-monetary entry into the capital through the investment of Medsi's competence and medical data, which we have a lot, obviously. So now I will focus more on what we did during the pandemic, because this is the time and the place when we started developing all our partnerships at an increased speed. So first of all, we have already had a partnership based on the AI analysis of medical images. We had all sorts of medical images like mammograms and x-rays. And here during the pandemic, we increased the number of services, including analysis of blood of our patients who were screened for the infection, so that the patients are prioritized for further CT scans of the chest. Then these CT scans are also analyzed by the AI, and they're prioritized for the doctor. So only those who are at higher risk can be transferred to further PCR analysis of the virus, which ensures that the patients that are at the most serious conditions are prioritized and get the help sooner. The other thing was, as I said, we opened one of our clinics exclusively for COVID-19 patients. And there to ensure that not only the patients have the best service, but also that our own employees are at the lowest possible risk of infection, we decided to implement a system of AI monitoring of patient care quality. So in only 3 days, we installed all the equipment and started the surveillance that can do the following things. It can prevent the falls by alarming the nurses that the patient is at risk. It can alarm the nurse if the patient has been out of the ward for a too long period of time because he can faint in the corridor or have any other issue. So he has to be checked on. Then it monitors the implementation of medical protocols, including the fact that medical personnel is wearing protection costumes, which is important both for the patient and for the clinical personnel. It allows for the two-way remote communication between medical staff and the patient. And ultimately, it reduces the burden on nurses because it allowed us to cut in half the visits of medical personnel into the dirty zone, into the red zone, because they don't have to check twice on the patient. They have all those smart alarms, and they usually know they have already checked upon this patient. They don't have to write it down or monitor somewhere in the notebook. Ultimately, yes.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. I mean that we are really coming closer to the to 11 a.m. In Moscow, but this was really interesting experience, and I believe that we could continue our discussion with the participants online.
Yes, sure. I just wanted to invite everyone, if you have any solutions that we can test in our clinics or with our partners, which we have a lot also. Feel free to contact me. Daria has all the contact information. I will be happy to talk to you.
Absolutely. And our next speaker also represents a private healthcare system in Russia. The Medscan Group is one of the major players in Russian private healthcare, having a network of multidisciplinary medical centers across the country. It is also important to mention that the group has strong international experience in creating medical centers in cooperation with partners from the US and Israel. I'm inviting now Sergei Sidorov, chairman of Medscan Group, to continue our discussion regarding the challenges and demands faced by the private healthcare institutions.
Good morning, everybody. I'd like to start by sharing an old joke. I think it was around 1996 when the Western journalist asked the former president of Russia, Mr. Boris Yeltsin, whether he can describe the state of affairs in Russia in one word. So Mr. Yeltsin thought for a second and said, good. Then the journalist continued on and said, can you actually describe it in 2 words? So Mr. Yeltsin thought again and said, not good. So I think it's a very good definition of the challenges that the private sector, the private healthcare sector was facing or is facing currently during the pandemics. Obviously, we are practitioners here, so we had to face the realities as soon as the virus hit Russia in its in its full way, and the realities were as such that some of our clinics had a major, especially during the lockdown, the revenue of some of our clinics has dropped by more than 75%. So it was actually a bit of a survival thing for us, just like for many private clinics in Russia, because people were in a lockdown, people were afraid to actually visit the hospital. And we actually had to come up with new solutions that we have not tested before. So for us, the major 3 lines helped turn around the businesses. One, first and foremost, were tests, 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 tests. As soon as we could get hold of the rapid tests, which were available in Singapore and in other countries, we introduced them to the city of Moscow. The second solution was telemedicine. Many speakers before mentioned that, but to develop that a little bit further, we believe that the overall home care is a major trend globally, and it's definitely going to hit us, very, very soon. It seems like the virus has been the major trigger for the development of that, and we definitely think that telemedicine is just the first and the very, very baby step towards the overall home care solutions. And yeah, a lot has been already said about use of AI for CT scanning. We do have a partnership with the Russian National Welfare Fund to develop that. It's early days, but we do believe that it's our house view that the virus is going to stay with us for at least 2 years. Whether it's going to come in waves, whether it's going to have further spikes or not, but this is not going away anytime soon. So we're not really hoping that this is a one-off event that's going to disappear. This is going to stay, all solutions like PCR tests, antibody tests, CT scans, home care is the only way that we can fight it before the vaccine is available. So Daria, I will not take any more of your time. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have.
Oh, thank you, Sergey. Actually, we have now received a question, I believe, to you and Sofia about what is the % of native population derived benefit from private health care in Russia, and does medical insurance play a vital role for private care? This comes from Ali Shirazi at Chronic Care PTE Ltd.
The percentage of the private healthcare within the overall system is very small. I think it's, if I'm not mistaken, it's just around 14% within the overall healthcare system. So we think that the private companies can definitely play a bigger role in the overall system, and we would be very happy we are happy to work with the government together and provide the know-how and solutions which are sometimes difficult to implement at the government level.
Okay, Sofia, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, so I can make a quick comment that many of the private companies work also with obligatory medical insurance patients. And we have a certain number of patients that we can receive per month, per period, for advanced procedures like scanning or tomography, etc. This is some part, at some part we collaborate with the government in this way.
Okay, thank you. And I believe, although it's already 11 a.m., we have about 10 minutes to ask some more questions, to ask you some more questions from the audience. And I believe that the next one comes to Yaroslav Ashikhmin. I would like to ask you, like, what lead should government agencies take to help public overcome the pandemic via technology and innovation?
That's quite a difficult question. Thank you for this. I suggest that modern system of government agencies and ministries of health of different countries working not in interest of people of the world. I think that we need to go to reformating of the whole medical systems. We need to improve the influence of the society, of the ethics committees, because now we see so many stakeholders, pharma, industry, politics that, like Trump, saying good words about the Plaquenil that totally doesn't work. You see how it works. I don't believe that ministries of health of the world and WHO really might help us to go to the equally right ethic healthcare in the world. That's why I suggest that we need to get to the society the new tools for health technology assessment and involve the society in the decision making. So regarding the ministers of health, we see that in many countries that's probably was do more bad than good. That's why in some countries I think that we need to totally destroy this, not in Russia, okay, on the Mars, for example, on Jupiter, but really we need to reformat the system, because the ministers of health usually is not interested in innovations.
Thank you, Yaroslav. And I believe the next question, also coming from Anish Sat, is about private healthcare system in Russia. And maybe Dr. Masliev could also join the discussion. So the question follows: has digital pathology been adopted in private healthcare, such as whole slide scanners?
I think it's the question not only for me. I think that this question is mainly for Sergey, because he involved in some scans, and he could answer more good this question than I. And I would like to say about what have we do, and about that Yaroslav said about health ministers and so on, healthcare system. So there was a really very big problems when we deal with the pandemic. For example, we have delivered some medicine from China, and we need to give this medicine for our doctors, for our clients, for our patients, but we cannot do it because there is no medical license in Russia for this medicine. And this is terrible. I know that Skolkovo Foundation, they have special program that they can use some foreign medicine in Russia. But the problem was that we bring, for example, favipiravir, it's Japanese medicine, and that was made also in China. And lots of patients need to get this medicine. But it was stay on custom for about a month, and we couldn't afford and we couldn't give it to healthcare system in Russia, and this is terrible. I think that we should go another way to cooperate with some foreign countries, and we should use some international protocols to use it everywhere. The second question was I'm sorry, I just a second, I forgot that.
Yeah, definitely. There was an example, like a whole slide scanners. So I believe that that could also be addressed to Sergey.
Daddy, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not sure what the whole slide scanners is. I'm very sorry about that. But what I do know is that the digital pathology is definitely the way forward. I think one of the laboratories, which is located in Skolkovo Union, is able to provide these digital images, which can be transmitted to, for instance, Israel for the review by Israeli doctors. So we don't have it in our clinics yet, but we definitely are looking at implementing one as soon as we launch into the inpatient facility.
Yeah, thank you very much. And before we run to the final question, there is one question to Yogi. And please, to your mind, what are the ways of Russian-Singapore med cooperation, and what Singapore companies need to go ahead with practical steps? Thank you.
Thanks, Daria. I think today probably is the first step. And the first step is really about us starting to share our own experiences in terms of what are the challenges that we're facing and what are the solutions we are seeking. Essentially, I think it is about connecting people, connecting communities, and developing a conversation between our countries and between our communities. So to me, I think really the first step is that, and it's today. And I would urge everyone in this group to try and connect with each other and share your own experiences. This is probably the first step. And as I think Yaroslav mentioned, the most important thing is not about the governments or the corporates, it is about the society. The society needs to drive its own initiatives in a sense. That's where I think we need to start from.
Thank you. And as we are running to the end of this webinar, I would like to ask one general question to each of the speakers that are still with us today. So how shall we educate our future generations to cope with pandemic and aftershocks? Your thoughts in 3 sentences.
A lot.
That was brief. Yogi, what are your thoughts on this? So how shall we educate our future generations to cope with pandemic and aftershocks?
I am a fan of history, so I always believe in learning what history has taught us and being aware of the history. But I don't think you can be ever fully prepared for new challenges ahead. You just have to take it one step at a time and try to find solutions as you move along the way. Even if for us in Singapore, this is new, to the whole world this is new, and we all just have to figure out and find the best solutions as we move along. So I wish I could say I knew what to tell people about the future, but I can't.
I agree with Jack Ma that's saying that the love and this special spiritual issues is a cornerstone of many positive changes in the world. I think that it's not possible to change only the healthcare system. We need to start with democracy, with open mindfulness. So, and then I think that I don't believe that medical society might help us. I believe that artificial intelligence that change the doctors in many different situations will help us to go to the ethical healthcare, and then based on the medical ethics, we will go to the good defense from the infectious disease.
Thank you. And Vladimir.
I would say that future generations will educate us rather than we have to think about how we would educate future generations. Innovations are on their side.
Yeah, right. Kirill, what do you think about educating the future generations to cope with this situation?
You know, for me as a doctor, one of the main things is not to do self-treatment, because lots of people begin some self-treatment with this epidemic. For example, Trump said that you should use chloroquine. Everybody go to pharmacy, buy every pack of chloroquine and start to use it. Even doctors start to use it in prevention. And what we see not a lot of, but we see not less deaths, because people with some heart disease, they take chloroquine, not do ECG, and they have many problems. About 40% of people who do self-treatment then will go into hospital, and their health was dramatically changed, and doctors did a lot of work to treat these patients. So for me, the main thing, not to do self-treatment.
Thank you. Agreed. That's really very important. And Sophia, being on the front line of digital transformation, what is your opinion on this?
Well, I think that the main thing we should teach our future generations is basically critical thinking, to sort all this propaganda and fake information, fake news from real experience of doctors and health providers and experts. And the second thing should probably be stress management, because we were not prepared for this period of uncertainty and many people are suffering. You see a big increase of demand of psychological training, coaching, and neurologists also. So we have to prepare for that also.
And only together we can be prepared. So thank you for being today with this online webinar. We have now approached to the end of this session. And I would like to thank all the speakers and our audience for being here today and asking really great questions. We will be getting back with the post-release with the Moscow International Medical Cluster, Enterprise Singapore and Sistema Asia. So thank you and have a great day ahead.